welcome to our fourth of this series, Oradian Testimonials webinar. Our guest is one of our oldest customers and a distinguished Mr. Atiku Usman from DEC. Welcome, Atiku.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to be here.
Really happy to have you.
Yeah.
Few things for some of our audience there that maybe don't know about DEC and about you. Can you tell us about your role at DEC and actually what DEC does and the whole business model, and also the very interesting geographical area where you guys operate?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. As Nicola mentioned, my name is Atiku Usman. I started here as the Information Technology Officer, but currently I'm the Information Technology Manager and the Head of Knowledge Management and Communication. My role entails making sure all management information systems are up and running, are operational, functional, the staff can use them appropriately, ensuring that we have the appropriate reports for management decision-making, operations, and so on. DEC is situated, well, the head office basically is situated in the northeastern part of Nigeria, Bauchi State to be precise. And the reason why DEC was established was due to disparity between how women were treated and how men treated women in the past. In the 80s, the mid to late 80s, there was an organization in Bauchi, CUSO, Canadian University Services Overseas, that embarked on a research to understand why women were at a disadvantage. So the result of that research was the establishment of DEC, to see how an organization like DEC could exchange knowledge or information to alleviate some of the segregation experienced by women. So it started out as adult literacy classes, education, awareness, and other social services like that. And then we also realized along the way that the women also need to be empowered financially, not just socially. Yes, it's good to empower them socially, but unless they have a financial stake in the family, there's still that level of segregation. So that's how we came about with the microfinance aspect of DEC. And so far, so good. DEC is more known for the microfinance aspect than for the social services now, because the microfinance has grown over the years. We currently have 123 branches, predominantly in the northern part of Nigeria. So we started basically in Bauchi State, Gombe State, then we spread to the northeastern part of Nigeria, then we spread across north central and northwest, and we're currently moving down towards the south. So because of the geographic location where we are, unfortunately with insecurity and insurgency, it has taken its toll on the populace here. There's a lot of internally displaced persons that has affected the microfinance landscape generally, because where we used to flourish, we now had to merge some of our branches. For example, in Borno State, we had at one point 4 or 5 branches. We now had to merge them all into one because the people were displaced, military interventions, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the people were displaced. It's now more difficult to have access to them, and so on. So we had to merge some of our branches. I think in the last 2 years, we had to close one in Michika because of the same reason, because of the insurgency. So though that was in the height or the peak of the insurgency, we closed a branch. When normalcy resumed, we reopened it again. And then in the last 2 years, there was more frequent attacks. We had to close it, close it again. But even with all of that, the experience has been positive. There have been positive results in empowering women in particular, because our focus is, as we realized from the study, has always been about empowering women. Though with the social services, we also include men as well. So what happens is, in terms of providing education education or adult literacy classes and things, we target more of the women and adolescent girls. But when it comes to things like other social interventions, like provision of potable water, health, and so on, we incorporate even the men in the community in the discussion so that they understand their role that they need to play. So it's no longer only the women that we create the awareness for, but also the men in the family so that they understand that there is a role that each gender plays in the home to make sure that it's sustained and empowered effectively. So basically, our business model for the microfinance is group membership. They start off with group memberships where the groups are responsible for ensuring that members of the group pay back the loans. And as the clients grow, we also introduce individual or online, we introduce individual loans where an individual can come up and say, okay, he has a company or something and they need a soft loan. We go through the process and we disperse the loans to them and they pay over time. We also have on lending loans where we can give other cooperative societies or cooperative groups a loan as a group. And they are responsible for dispersing the loans to the individual members, receiving the loans back, and then repaying debt over a period of time. Then we also developed small and medium enterprise loans for cottage industries, so that even if it's an individual, you have a cottage industry, we can support you to a certain extent. And basically, those are the various models we use. We started initially with just giving loans to individuals for a whole year. And basically, they were into farming back in the early 2000s, late 90s. So we give them a loan for the whole year. After the end of the farming season, they pay back. But then we started with the MicroStart project for the microfinance in the early 2000s, where we now developed the group methodology, or we adopted the group methodology rather, because what we did was we just used the ASA/Grameen sort of model to begin with, and then expanded from there as the need arose. Because over time, people came and said, well, they're not in a group, but they have a cooperative society, or they're individuals. Is there any way that they can support them? So we had to now deviate a little from what we had earlier adopted to now look at how can we adopt as many people as possible into microfinance for microfinance inclusion, empowerment, and so on, so that our outreach improves. So we have various models that we use, but primarily the one that is predominant is still the group membership.
And Atiku, that's a very interesting and inspiring story that started actually a long time ago, as you explained the background story. And I really agree with everything that you said and in your model. How many clients do you have right now, like end clients, roughly?
Roughly, we have close to 200,000 active clients.
Mm.
One thing that Instafin has helped us do is to look at how many clients we have provided services for over the past possibly 6 or 7 years. We started with Instafin in 2014. So from 2014 to date, we have provided financial services to over 800,000 clients.
So almost a million clients from 2014 to onwards.
Yes.
Oh, this is some impressive. I know Nigeria is a very big country, but these are some very impressive numbers. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So out of that, the reason why the disparity between the 800 and the 200 is, of course, clients come and go.
Mm-hmm.
So even now we're servicing more than the 200,000, but we're currently in the period where the number of active clients drops,
Mm-hmm.
because most of our clients are into farming, and our farming season starts April, May, and ends around between October to December. So right now they're paying off the loans. So as they're paying off, they're dropping, and then when the farming season starts, they return. So we always have this fluctuation. So by the middle of the year, you'll see that the number of active clients actually goes up.
Mm-hmm. And that's like a seasonal thing for you then, I see.
Yeah,
And
it's a seasonal thing.
so you said you have a lot of your end clients. You're only working with women then, or is a group model, or do you include everyone in the group model?
No, in the group model, we work only with women.
Okay.
But when we're looking at cooperative societies and individuals, it doesn't matter, that the gender doesn't matter. But
Hmm.
for the group methodology, the reason for that is we want to see that we empower rural, economically active rural women in particular.
Hmm.
So that is why we insist for the group methodology, we insist on all of them being women, because that has been the focus of that from the beginning.
That's a, I think, in development studies and development economics, that's one of the strongest indicator, or one of the strongest factor to improving the level of development and economy, is exactly
Yeah.
what you guys are doing, actually, empowering
Mhm.
economically and financially women, not just socially as you did.
Yeah.
um, that's a really amazing work. Also, interesting point with us, you're our oldest client, and we have about over 60, 70 clients now, and we are in 12 countries in the world, mostly in
Wow, that's
Africa and
great.
Southeast Asia. But then here
Mhm.
we talk with our number one and our first. What changed since you said 2014? How have things changed for you, and at what stage were you before you adopted Oradian, in terms of operations, in terms of digitalization, in terms
Oh,
of
sure.
running things?
Okay. Well, I'll start with where we were before.
Okay.
So where we were prior to Oradian and Instafin, we're basically operating manually. That is, everything was done on pen and paper. Our monthly reports were manually data entry. It was entered manually into Excel spreadsheets and consolidated in the spreadsheets across the branches. Well, our structure then was we had branches, areas. Each area consists of about 3 to 5 branches. And as the areas grew, we also had to create another structure for the district where we have 3 to 5 areas under one district for ease of consolidating reports and management at the field level. Then so at each level, the branch creates the report. It's consolidated at the area level, consolidated at the district level, then consolidated at the head office. The challenge we had with that system was management doesn't get the end of month report until 2 weeks into the new month. And everything was done manually. So unless management gets that final report, let's say middle of the month, before they'll know, okay, this is the current performance or levels from the branches up to the head office. So it was difficult to keep track of what's really going on a regular basis. We implemented an MIS system prior to Instafin, but it didn't cut across the whole institution. We only had about 25, 24 licenses it was a standalone system, so I had to install it per branch. And even then, we still had the same problem. The branch level was able to monitor what they did on a regular basis, but the head office doesn't have access to that data because it wasn't consolidated at the head office. So that was one of the reasons why we moved to Oradian and Instafin, because we realized that we could Instafin consolidates the daily entries automatically. But no matter how many branches you have, credit officers, data encoders, as soon as the data is entered, it's consolidated automatically. So it's more or less semi-real time, depending on how soon you can get the data entered into Instafin. So that was why one of the major reasons why we moved to Instafin, so that on a regular basis, the head office and various line managers will have access to the system and be able to see the performance and what's going on at the branch level, at the area level, district level, and so on at any point in time.
Right.
Now that has made our work a lot easier and has made the operations more effective and efficient, in the sense that now that you can see what's going on, you know what's going on well, you know what's not. So in terms of monitoring or in terms of auditing, it's easier to keep track of what is going on over a period of time because you can see that more or less real time. The field officers, like the line managers, know what's going on in branch A or B, and they know what issues to address when they visit the branch physically. So those are some of the areas that where we were before and where we are now, basically.
And that's great insight. And I mean, you've been our customer for so long, and you work in some precarious conditions. I believe. You. I hope you're happy with everything so far. Of course, we always we're always trying to improve everything from obviously our services, our product, our customer success, what we call as well. But one peculiar question, because you said you talked about time before Oradian and now. So if you want to scale your operations now, if you said you currently have 200,000 end clients, if you want to go to 400,000 in next season, uh, is it easy for you on a Radian platform? Is it seamless? How hard would that be?
On the platform, it's seamless. It wouldn't be hard at all. The challenge would actually be the physical expansion on the in the field.
Mm.
That's where the challenge is. But for the process, the using the technology, it's a seamless process. We can expand as much as we like. In fact, that's another reason why that's another advantage of Instafin rather
Mm.
over the system we had in the past. It's a lot easier scaling or reaching more clients with Instafin than we had with the previous system.
And
In that you don't really have the technological limitations that we had with the previous one. For example, the other one, we had to have backups for each branch
mm,
and then send those backups to the head office where they're consolidated into one database, which was still a standalone database anyway. But with this one, everything is online. So scaling up is more or less the sky is the limit, basically.
mm.
Unlike we had in the past where you're thinking of storage facilities, the capacity of the desktops or the laptops in the field, the capacity of the server here at the head office, and things like that. Being that everything is online, it's quite seamless moving forward. The
That's
challenge now is physically opening the branches.
that's the true power of cloud technology, right? And this is the benefits,
Yeah,
especially in an area what you in your area in northeastern Nigeria, where you
yeah,
said it's a very volatile area still, where
mhm,
you have insurrections and you have to, move and close branches and stuff like this, and then it's much easier if you have to move once everything is in the cloud, right? So this is
yeah,
definitely a benefit for situations like this, right?
exactly.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Mhm.
challenge you a bit also on opening the branches, because I know you guys
Okay.
are users of our what we call the Instafin Field Officer app, or IFOA,
Yes. Yeah.
and which basically just a little bit of a backstory for people that might not know is it's an app that allows you to go on the field for field officers and enter information, and then even if you're in remote areas, even if you're offline, it
Mm,
saves everything. And once you connect online, when you're back at your branch or back at home in this moments when you have to work from home, um,
yeah.
when you connect to any kind of internet, it uploads all the information into Instafin. So
Yes.
is this helping your operations as well when you go in the field? Does this, I'm going to go even further and ask you, does this
Mhm.
maybe reduce the need to have some branches at all for you?
Well, for now, well, it has improved the operation significantly.
Hmm.
And but in terms of the need to open branches, it may or may not. Currently, it hasn't, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to see, especially in our where the environment is the most volatile, we're
Hmm.
trying to see how we can regain ground, and that is where possibly IFOA could come in, where you may not need to have a physical branch, but rather just have a credit officer that's responsible for a particular area or or a set of communities. In terms of but for the normal branch operations, we would prefer to have the branches as close to the clients as possible, because that helps us in terms of managing the system, making sure we operate efficiently, and then also reaching more clients. Because the more we have a branch physically located close to the clients, the larger the outreach. Because basically in the north, our people still believe in actually seeing the one-on-one contact rather than just the technology.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that we need to, at least if they see the physical presence and then we introduce the technology, it's a lot easier expanding that way. For our operations using IFOA, it has actually improved the efficiency of our branches and our operations because the credit officers, like you mentioned, now enter the transactions directly on the app, upload it to Instafin. We started the MIS system having data encoders in every branch.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, since we started implementing IFOA, we have 39 of our branches without data encoders. Since we implemented IFOA, we had now reassigned the data encoders as credit officers or IT officers, wherever their capabilities lie. So it creates more efficiency. The branch officers now do most of the other work the data encoders did. So what we have done is we split the responsibility between the credit officers and the branch officers now. The
Mm-hmm.
credit officers are responsible for collections in the field and entering those collections in the app. The branch managers are responsible for journal entries, loan disbursements, closing of clients, and approving clients and things like that. So it creates a lot more, it's more efficient. There's a lot more work that can go on so that the credit officers rather have more time for the clients in the field.
And how much there's a great point on operational efficiency. How many can you estimate how much more efficient can the field officers be now that they don't have to do the paperwork, the manual work? How many more people can they engage with, and now that they have the using IFA?
Well, our target has always been initially that every credit officer should have approximately 400 to 450 clients. They
Mm-hmm.
should be able to handle that on a weekly basis. It hasn't, in some areas, they even have more than that. But where the volatile situation, particularly in the Northeast, has made that a bit more challenging. So we're trying to get back to that level. What IFOA has helped us do now is at least they're able to come back from the field on time,
Mm-hmm.
because we had two challenges. One was the number of clients per credit officer. Two was the other issue is being able to come back to the office on time to update the manual books and so on before closing. So at least the app has now created that efficiency where they're able to return from the field on time. And now we're pushing towards the outreach, making sure they're able to attend to more clients as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Perfect.
can't really I can't really give a figure for that right now.
That's okay, but as this is part of the process, but definitely we're like that contributes to the efficiency part. Definitely.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just going to remind our audience here, please ask questions. You can write them down now, and then we're going to answer them. I mean, mostly I think was going to answer them later. Please, it's very. I mean, we like these opportunities to talk to people in the field and people that are running financial institutions, because you can ask them directly, and you can, regardless of whether you're running in a financial institution yourself, or you're some kind of stakeholder or you have an interest in it, because they can learn a lot from a concrete example. And then what we had in the past, we also had this uh, I would say this cross pollination across different markets. And we have markets like Nigeria and the Philippines, and then how some of our clients implemented something in Nigeria, our Filipino clients would actually get interest and improve in that way. So please ask any kind of relevant questions. You can type it in now, and then we're gonna address them later, or we can just do a Q&A at the end. I know our audience sometimes tends to be a bit shy, but this is a unique opportunity to speak to our long-standing client in a very particular uh, part of the world in a very admirable role. So please take the opportunity. Atiku, I want to put you on the spot here at a bit in the end.
All right, no
Perfect.
problem.
So can you tell us a little bit of so you've been with Oradian but for 7 years now, you said, but then can you tell us roughly about, you told us about the seasonality of your client base. Can you tell
Mhm.
us about your growth overall in the last 7 8 years in terms of overall numbers of clients, overall loan portfolio, etc.?
Okay. Yeah. By the time we started with Instafin, we had, I think our portfolio was barely, I think a little over a billion naira. I can't really remember. our naira fluctuates a lot, so I can't tell what value that is in dollars now. Uh, but we started with a little over 1 billion naira.
Mm,
Currently, our portfolio is over 3 billion. We're getting close to 4 billion naira.
mm,
And we started with about 79 branches back in 2014. We currently have 123, 123.
mm-hmm,
If not for the branches we had closed, we'd have been closer to 130.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in
That's
terms of
quite,
numbers, like I mentioned earlier, it's it's seasonal. So we know that in a year, in the course of a year, we can provide services to up to 300,000 clients.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, on an annual basis from January, let's say from September to August, we
mm-hmm,
can provide service. We on an annual basis we provide services to about 300. Currently, as of the last year, that is 300,000, and that figure has grown annually by almost about 10-15%.
mm-hmm. That's quite a stable increase. And I'm gonna touch upon another topic that is relevant to your operations for sure, and this is something that is not just unique to northern Nigeria, but the whole world. How has
Okay.
COVID impacted your operations? How's how are you struggling, and how are you coping with it?
Yeah, COVID has affected the operations significantly, uh, especially during the lockdown between. In Nigeria, the lockdown was sporadic. Some states were locked down sooner than others. So overall, between March to June, July, uh, we had areas where we couldn't move. And but what happened in most of the states was the state governors gave particular days for economic activity to take place, because we realized here that there are people that unless they go out on a daily basis, they have nothing to eat. So if you lock them down for a whole week straight, it creates greater problems, economic problems, health issues, uh, nutritional issues, and so on. So every week there are 2 days at least every week that economic activity can take place. So on those days, our staff went to the field, made collections. The clients, some clients who wanted to make deposits would go to the bank, make deposits in the bank account for the branch. So it makes the work a lot easier for the credit officers. So one of the things we did also was to open that channel for the clients to say, okay, when you have your collections, you may not need to wait for the credit officers to come and make the collections. Just go to the bank, deposit it in the branch account, give the teller to the credit officer or bring the teller to the branch office, and then we update the records to tally with the collections that were deposited in the bank directly.
Mm-hmm,
The other aspect of the work was also to reduce cash handling by the credit officers by ensuring that clients with bank accounts were dispersed through their banks rather than through cash. In the past, the model has been that the client comes to the branch, signs the documents, receives a cash disbursement. What we're pushing forward now is trying to make sure that our clients, particularly in urban or semi-urban areas, have bank accounts that we can disperse this cash to the bank through the bank, and then they just go to the account or ATM machine, withdraw whatever they need, and go about their economic activities. The same thing with refunding it. They can just go to the bank, make their payment, bring the teller, and then we update the records. So that has helped to some degree in at least the social distancing aspect of COVID-19. But overall, there has been should I say, a downturn in the activities. We didn't achieve as much as what we had targeted for the year 2020. But with the strategies we have put in place, we don't think that the second wave will affect us as much.
mm-hmm. And then I guess being digital first in situations like this, and having a digital cloud system when a
Yeah.
pandemic hit, something that no one expected on a really global level. Uh,
Yeah.
I guess it was much easier for you to manage these operations than
Yes.
otherwise, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was much easier for us to manage it with the cloud system.
Mhm.
Another thing that helped was the emergency relief that Oradian developed in Instafin around, and it just came out at a timely moment because since we were not able to go visit the client on a regular basis and they were not able to repay on a regular basis, it affected the overall performance of the client, which
Mhm.
of course was no fault of the client, no fault of the organization.
Mhm.
But with the emergency relief, we're able to now say, okay, can we shift these repayments for the periods that the clients were actually locked down and could not embark on any economic activity?
Mhm.
Because even our clients were affected by the lockdown in the sense that they were prohibited from going to the market. They were prohibited from opening their shops. There were times where even during the commercial activities that people were allowed to go out for, if you stayed beyond the time permitted by the government will just come and lock your shop with their own padlocks on locks and so on. And you have to go through a certain process or pay fines before it's reopened and so on and so forth. So to avoid all of that, clients just didn't open their shops unless those days that they're permitted to do so. So it affected their own economic turnover, which affected the repayment. But with this emergency relief, it enabled us to more or less shift the repayments that were due so that it didn't negatively affect the client's performance. And once normalcy resumed, the lockdowns were, or should I say, restrictions on movement were removed. We could move within the states, we could not move interstate. So for some, at least, there was a certain level of economic activity that resumed. So once that was lifted, economic activity resumed and repayments were more frequent and things more or less evened out at the end.
Perfect. Like I think it's a very again unique situation, and then you are be able to even like I know our product team was very eager to push the emergency relief thing that package that you mentioned, the features, because
Mm.
exactly the situation is like, I mean, it's not your goal, of course, for your clients to default. It's not our
Yeah.
it's not our goal for you to be frustrated because you have to click on every client out of 200,000 that you mentioned. So this is
Yeah.
among other things. I see the question actually from Louis Madafi in the Q&A section or in the chat section where he's asking what is the emergency relief, and this is
Okay.
exactly what I think we just explained is among other features we list is like this batch freezing, for example, or
Yeah.
batch postponement of collections or defaults, right? Uh,
Yeah.
did your clients, you explained about the economic hardship of some clients that couldn't work. Did you have a drastic increase in defaults and portfolio at risk and or non having the ability to collect because of this pandemic situation and lockdown?
Not particularly. Due to the lockdown itself, we didn't have, and of course, due to the emergency relief feature that was added that we could implement, we didn't have a significant increase in portfolio at risk. The only ones that we did have that challenge with was with there was a flood in the midst of the COVID-19. Some of the communities experienced flooding as well, so
On top
that
of it,
actually wiped out some of the farms, and
wow.
that was where the portfolio at risk actually went up a bit. And we had wanted to implement the emergency relief for that feature as well, but the clients at the end just said, well, they'll do their best to repay so that we shouldn't worry. We shouldn't worry about it. They'll still find a way of repaying. So that didn't have, so even with that, the portfolio at risk didn't really go up significantly.
Hmm. And but you also we talked a little bit of what we call iterating additional services. um
Yes. Mhm.
and we talked about it for at length. We talked about this package that we released during the pandemic called the emergency relief. But you as deck also use the messaging feature. Can you tell us a bit more how you use it and in what capacity it helps you in your operations?
Yes. Yeah. Well, we adopted Instafin messaging about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
No, last year actually. Yeah, from 2019 to 2020, 2020 to date. Yeah. So initially we started with end of month balances, just stating the client's loan product, the client's loan product, her current savings loan balance, her savings products, and savings balances. We usually have two savings products, basic ones. That is the regular savings for the requirement for the loans, and then and voluntary savings. So it gives the loan product and the balance, regular savings product and balance, and then the voluntary savings and the balance. Then from 2020 to date, added, uh, we subscribed for additional services. That is loan repayments, savings, and savings deposits in particular. The reason for that also was so that the clients are assured that even in the COVID-19 or whatever, whenever they make a deposit or a loan repayment, they're sure that those funds have hit their accounts in Instafin. So once a repayment is made, they receive an SMS message stating the amount paid and the date the amount and the date the amount was paid. That helps us in two ways. One, it ensures that the client is aware that it has reached us, and it also helps us in terms of transparency because our clients we're still more or less heavily dependent on cash. We want to make sure that our operations are as transparent as possible for the clients, making sure that whatever you have deposited or repaid hits your account and you're made aware of that as soon as possible so that we don't have any instances of fraud, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the challenges with that is the client makes a deposit or makes a repayment, savings deposit and loan repayment. The staff could, for whatever reason, say, okay, keep it for themselves or keep a portion for it for themselves and record something different in A4.
Mm-hmm.
But now, once the repayment is made, the client immediately receives an SMS message stating what was paid and how much. And if for any reason they feel there's a discrepancy,
They
they can
contact.
now object. Yeah, contact the branch office and say, okay, this is it, and then we address the issue. But largely, it's more for making sure that we have transparent operations.
Mm.
Going forward, would also like to add things like the loan disbursement messaging and so on. And also, the messages also help us to customize other messages other than just loan repayments and savings deposits or loan disbursements. During the COVID-19 period as well, what we did with some of the messages was we sent a message to the client stating being careful during the COVID-19 period, stay hand washing, making use of sanitizers, face masks, and things like that. And also stating for the time period, there was a time that our branches were closed because of the lockdowns. We also informed the clients, okay, our branches are closed from this period to this period.
Mm-hmm.
You won't need to make you're not obligated to make any financial loan repayment, savings deposit during this period because we're not operational, but we'll be operational from so date going forward where business resumes, financial obligations resume, and things like that. So the messages help us in terms of outreach, not just transactional messages, but any information we need to pass on to the client, we can do that.
Mm-hmm. And so you and also in it's such a great thing as you said also in situations of crisis where you can inform clients. You also mentioned how it reduces the messaging function, how it reduces obviously the reliance, actually reduces the amount of, let's even call it fraud and error,
Mm.
so people can have this transparency in operations is really really important to have like a to have all the way from the top to the customer to the client, so you can have and then obviously every kind of reduced error is actually much better, and then reduces time to the organization and to the officers themselves, right? Um,
Yeah.
Do you beside the pandemic thing and the improved efficiency with messaging, did you also notice perhaps that it improved your repayment deadlines or stuff like this since you adopted messaging?
Yeah, well, we haven't noticed that yet. Those are things that that's the next aspect we want to get into, because we know we discussed this with Philip,
Mm-hmm.
the reminders for repayments and things like that. But we felt for now, let's look at the transparency aspect first.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're doing that, we want to go into reminders to see how have SMS messages impacted repayments,
Mm-hmm.
and then if it hasn't, will the reminders now be an avenue to remind people ahead of time?
Mm-hmm.
Stating, especially where you have long-term loans
Mm-hmm.
or loans with long grace periods, it's easy to forget when the first installment is due and then the next one going forward. So that is the next aspect we're looking into for this year.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's also another great possibility with messaging. And last question on messaging, I promise. Do you get any feedback from your end clients in terms of how, since you start using messaging and communicating with them in that way? What is the feedback from the end clients? Are they happy with it? Are they indifferent? What is the overall feeling?
The overall feeling is positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've had a few complaints because, of course, we charge them for the for the messages. So, but of course, the awareness was created prior to embarking on the messaging, stating, "We're going to introduce this. What is your take on it?"
Mm-hmm.
We actually conducted a survey that we passed through the credit officers to the field during the group meetings. Get feedback from the clients as to what type of messages they would like to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we actually embarked on the loan repayment and savings deposit additional services.
Mm-hmm.
So the feedback is positive. I think one of the things that we may need to work on is the charges, because we just tied the charges, for example, to the savings account. But one of the suggestions is, could it be set up in a way that the charges go out maybe just once a month rather than for every transaction?
Mm-hmm.
So those are things that I know we discussed with Philip in the past, and we may need to revisit that discussion again to see how we could implement it more effectively. But in terms of the feedback on receiving the messages, it's quite positive.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah,
Philip, who gets mentioned a lot, is our customer success guru or genius, and he's working with Atiku on a daily basis. Uh,
yeah,
Excellent. I think we covered a lot of stuff. There is other, though, maybe briefly. I think we, in obviously,
yeah,
or as a Radian, we try to really, really cater our clients. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easier, but then we're also obviously present in very diverse and different markets. So we also trying to and we installed all these features, including, for example, in Nigeria, the BVN number, right? Like the and then this is something that is
yeah, yeah,
completely possible to adapt to our customers in Nigeria.
yeah.
Yeah. So excellent.
Yeah, the BVN. Okay, go ahead.
No, no, sorry, sorry. Like, tell me how what
No,
is
go
your
ahead. Go ahead.
with the BVN?
Well, we haven't implemented it yet in Instafin. Again, those are one of the things we've been discussing with Philip over the past few months. Hopefully, we may get something done this year. We just want to see how far we can go with the messages first and then embarking on the BVN. But
Mhm,
for the advantage of the BVN, from what we understand, is being able to positively identify clients.
mhm,
The challenge we have in the North, particularly, is with the means of identification.
mhm,
We have different means of identification with different source documents.
mhm,
So you could have one person with two, three, or four different means of identification with different names on it.
mhm,
But with the BVN, it's tied to one person. The individual has only one means of one means of identification, which should cut across everything else.
mhm,
So as far as even the government and our National Identification Management Commission is involved with. One of the things one of the things the government here is trying to do is linking the BVN with our entity so that we have something like just one source of identification for everyone. And that is where the BVN also has an advantage over other means of identification. So that once we're able to do that, we verify that this is the individual we're working with and the identification doesn't change over time. So with that, it makes it easier and it makes it more secure to know that you're dealing with this particular individual and the person can come with a different identity tomorrow. Because every time you're admitting the person or dispersing a loan, you can check the BVN to make sure that this is indeed the right person you're doing business with.
Perfect. It's another feature that is very market specific that we are addressing with our clients, especially in markets that we are as present as we are in Nigeria. I think there's a few questions in the audience. Our audience is pretty shy now. I think this is a very fascinating field and very fascinating operation. And DEC is a very impressive organization for its history, as Atiku explained. We have one question that is more like, let's say, Oradian or Instafin specific. Beatrice is asking if the offline is accessible to all Instafin subscribers. Well, not really. If I have to answer shortly, it's the FOA part where we talked about the offline feature. It's part of our additional services, and DEC is a user. So basically, so what we have is additional services, IFOA, and then we also talked about messaging. All of those things are additional services that you can get as a client on top of your Instafin subscription or on top of your Instafin core banking system that you need to run your operations. But based on what Atiku said, he seems pretty happy with both. I'm not going to challenge him on that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I know in the past, when we started with IFOA, we actually pilot tested IFOA in 2013 for a couple of months before signing on fully. And then Instafin was basically just a bare bones operation system, of a core banking system. And because it was online, one of the questions we asked Onyeka at the time was, can we use, let's say, an Android tablet or phone to for our data entry, basically? So by the end of 2015, then of course IFOA wasn't developed, but in 2015, what we did with one of our branches was we bought Android tablets for the credit officers, and they started directly entering the data themselves. Unfortunately, because there was no offline feature, they had to still use the pen and paper during the group meeting where there was no internet connection. Then when they come back to the office, they enter it directly themselves. So for that particular branch from 2015 onwards, the credit officers have actually been doing the data entry themselves until IFOA was developed, and then we now rolled IFOA out to the 39 branches. We have about 60 outstanding or so that we need to do this year. Yeah. So IFOA has been very helpful, actually.
Yeah, I think it's, especially obviously depending on case by case situation, but I think the benefits of, we discussed about the benefits of the cloud system, but then we also discussed about this benefit of having this little tablet or little phone where you can go really far in the field, where even in the best case scenario and in an amazing network of branches, you're always going to have this kind of areas, right? So it's always possibility to have this, and then what we talked about before, reduce error, and then combine with also adding this to Instafin once you're online, and then also combine with messaging, which improves transparency. I think it's a really powerful tool to help you with running your organization, depending obviously on the circumstances, market, client base, etc. Again, just to reiterate, messaging and IFOA are like additional services of Instafin. Well, something that Atiku mentioned before, for example, the emergency relief. This is a set of features that we released for all our customers when the pandemic hit very early on. I believe that was like in April already or something. I think our product team was very very busy to release that because it was a very new situation for all of us.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, please ask now. We've been here for a long time. Sorry, it was a very interesting talk for me. But then raise your hand. I think at the beginning, I don't know if it was an error or what. Christopher raised a hand. So Christopher, if you want to speak, or I can let you. I can let you ask a question to Atiku or anyone else. This is probably your last chance to ask someone with so much experience running a very, I would say, impressive financial institution like that. I'm gonna allow Christopher to talk. Maybe he has a question. Hello, Christopher. Do you wanna ask a question? You have to unmute yourself if you want to talk. Otherwise,
Yeah.
Sir,
hello, Christopher.
sorry for that. I just
Do you want to ask a question to Atiku or
and um, I just like to hear the testimonial of Sir Atico. So
Mhm.
since we are the same what's that? We have the same position. I'm an information technology officer.
Mhm.
I just want to hear about his experience, when it comes to technology, about Instafin. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, I hope you like the testimonial there by Atiku.
Yeah,
And if you have any additional questions, I'm sure Atiku is fine. You can reach out directly. You
Mhm.
can reach out to us, and we can help connect you, or we can answer any questions. I think Atiku is since you're
Yeah.
calling, it's always good to chat and get some feedback.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Sorry,
That's it.
Christopher, you mentioned the experience as an IT officer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. When
Okay.
it comes to when it comes to Instafin,
Okay. Yeah. Well, Instafin actually, when it comes to Instafin, it's really quite simple, really, because once you get the basic configuration right, everything else basically just is about operation, basically. And so far, since we configured Instafin from the beginning, we haven't really had any challenges with it. In terms of my experience as an IT officer, really the work is a lot easier for me technically. Uh, I'll give a little background to my experience as an IT officer prior to uh, Instafin, maybe maybe to understand better. When we had the standalone system in several branches, for every configuration, for every new loan product we created, we had to go around every branch to create the same loan product in the chart of accounts, the loan product settings, and so on and so forth. So for instance, we had 24 branches running that system. It means that today, if we come up with a new loan product, I have to make 24 trips or visit 24 branches to get that done. With Instafin, everything is done centrally. So it removes the headache of multiple configurations across multiple branches. Uh, Technically, also because most of the database development, the programming is done by Oradian and handled at the back end. All you're using is the front end interface, basically, the user interface to do all of the configuration and so on. So it actually makes the work a lot easier because it shields you from the technical details that goes on in the back end on the cloud. Then for sorry, then for other aspects of the work as well in terms of monitoring the system and even the users on the system, it's a lot easier because everything is done centrally. The only other aspect of it as an IT officer that may have some technical components to it is when you're looking at generating custom reports or dynamic reports where the field staff may not have the technical knowledge to develop such reports, but you can develop the template and then they just generate the reports on a regular basis. Then also for the way Instafin has also made it a lot easier for us, particularly for me, is that because it is not technically difficult, it was easy for us to train our line managers, audit team, monitoring team to generate the report themselves. So it makes the work a lot more easier for me, so that my responsibility now is basically just making sure that Instafin is up and running, doing things like assessing where do we, the next level of in terms of strategy. Where do we go with Instafin from here? Or where do we go with MIS from here? Now we've been able to achieve consolidation, automatic consolidation, real-time data, ease of monitoring and efficiency. Where do we go in terms of digitalization from here? And for me, outside Instafin and Oradian, because of the success we've had with this, we're now trying to implement, or should I say, expand the MIS experience to other departments and units in DEC. We have our monitoring and evaluation unit that is still being done manually. We also need to see how we can digitalize that process. How do we digitalize our accounting, our human resource, and things like that. So as an IT officer for me in DEC, Instafin has been a stepping stone for DEC as an organization to say, yeah, we have done this with microfinance. Can we do this with other departments and units? So that is where we're heading to, which is a bit more technical because that requires more or less replicating what we did with Instafin with the other departments. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Does it, Christopher? I hope he does. He was.
I hope it does.
But
I hope it does. But then, yeah.
Yes, that was a great insight in how you how actually, I think when we have a successful implementation of Instafin with one of our clients, there is a lot of departments that are happy. There is a senior management because they have all this on the insides. There is compliance in some places because reporting is much easier now and it's much more real time.
Yeah.
But then definitely one of the happier people are also the IT department. Said,
yeah, the IT department. Yeah, actually, we're quite happy. I have about 7 IT supervisors that work directly under me. The reason for that again was it was difficult for one person handling 24 branches.
Mhm.
So we developed the position of the IT supervisor to say, okay, over time, yes, a new loan product has been created. We just show them how to do it and they go to the field and do that, rather than one person going around all 24 branches or so. And even now with Instafin, they were like, the work is a lot easier for them because it's less of troubleshooting the system. You can, because of the various patches you have to install and so on, the system can be working great today. Tomorrow you boot the system and it's a mess. So, but with Instafin, we don't have those issues. So it's technically it's a lot easier. And a lot better actually, because now you can now focus on strategy and the whole digitalization of the institution as a whole, rather than looking at specific technical issues on a regular basis.
So instead of putting out fires that are burning, you can focus on a big picture thing, which is
yeah, exactly.
For a head of tech and at a financial institution.
Yes.
I think that's it. They have one more comment from Beatrice, and so she said basically that well, she says offline is very essential in. Let me just turn this off. Very essential for the part of the world as connectivity is a challenge, and she says again, cost of data and misuse of data by staff with offices is crucial. I think I think we covered this point, and I think you did it really great, saying that well, if WA helps you do this exactly, that's the part that we need to go when you have low connectivity or even internet volatility, right? And then I liked your comment about transparency and the messaging part, where reduces any kind of fraud or even human error, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of the high cost of data, Nigeria, for example, yes, we do have challenges with internet connectivity, as we experienced last week, and it comes and goes at any time. the cost of data is pretty high as well. But I think one of the things that we have done at DEC is to leverage our staff's ability to use the Android phones personally. What I mean by that is most of our staff have access or have Android phones. So one of the things we did was for those that didn't, we acquired the Android phone on their behalf and they paid that back as a loan without interest. And we provide the data for IFOA for them. But of course, they use the phones for their personal use, WhatsApp, Facebook, other social media, and things like that. So we just subsidize it basically for IFOA. Anything outside that, they're responsible for that. And so far, so good. It has worked pretty well. We haven't had instances of data being insufficient for IFOA in any way.
Because IFOA should also use less data than, let's say, YouTube, right? Just filling it in or whatever.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So, yeah, excellent. The last question, and then I think we can wrap it up because we've been here for like a slightly over an hour. If you have any more questions, now is your last chance to do it. One more thing, we have this feature for GPS addresses. Unfortunately, not yet. This is like many features. Obviously, we have a long list in product management of features. She's asking about if we can add a GPS address to customers. We obviously have all customer information at the moment, which is the usual information that you need for your operations and the fields. But then the GPS feature is something definitely to look into it, although not yet available. It's maybe something, but we are always, I mean, part of this core Oradian philosophy, I would have to say, it's like we work with our clients because we want them to grow for obvious reasons, because we want them to keep staying our clients. And then we always look into features and talk to them. And you mentioned Philip before, and people in our customer success team are doing this exactly to accommodate and find ways to and then working with our product team, with our sales team, etc., and find a way to actually accommodate any kind of need and solve kind of problems that you might have. I think we can be kind of proud of this, but then Atiku is here to actually say more about it. But yeah, that's about it. Definitely, we always look into new features. As I said before, also every market has its own peculiarity, right? That we try to adapt. And we talked about the BBN, the number, and then we have similar different requirements in the Philippines, etc. Perfect. Atiku, do you have any last comment? Do you have any? Maybe you can conclude in. You talked about big picture digitalization, and now you can focus more as the head of IT, as the head of tech. You can focus more on like a big picture stuff instead of putting out fires. Where do you see DEC in 3-5 years from now in terms of business, but also in terms of the digital trail?
Yeah, within the next 3 to 5 years, of course, one of the goals is to be paperless. I know it will not be totally without paper, but that is the end. That is the end goal. Actually, we hope that within the next 5 years, at the very most, 3 years if possible, to make sure that we reduce our, should I say, paper usage. Basically, what we want to do is to make sure that we use and take advantage of the technologies we have. One has been Instafin. The next, as I mentioned earlier, would be digitalizing the other processes we have, not just the accounting or the human resource, but even operations within our various offices and interactions with the field. For example, one of the things we would like to do now is we have our IT team consists of 7 IT supervisors on the field, the senior IT supervisor at the head office, and myself. So one of the things we do is we have these type of online meetings from time to time, rather than having them physically travel to the head office unless it's absolutely necessary. So some of the things we want to do in terms of digitalization is making sure that we automate as much of our processes as possible, and then also make it more efficient in terms of being able to work closely with others, even though you may not have to be in physical proximity. So those are the areas we're looking at hopefully within the next 3 to 5 years, technologically speaking, DEC should be a powerhouse.
Perfect. I mean, you
DEC
want to.
should be a powerhouse.
We truly hope so. As I said, it's one of our oldest customers, definitely oldest customers in the world, not just in the region. And I think
Yeah, no,
you guys are really, really on a good path. And I can speak probably for all of the Oradian team. We're very proud of that.
thank
And
you very much.
you mentioned someone who has serviced since you started already in more than 800,000 end clients, which is, I have to say, an
Yeah,
impressive number.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Atiku. I hope we're going to have a chance to talk again soon.
Yeah,
Uh, I hope
we
everyone
should.
here enjoyed it. If you have any concrete questions, you can email us always at knowledge@oradian.com. You can reach out if you really want to talk to Atiku privately. If you don't have his contacts, we're more than happy to connect. Christopher also says thank you for the great information experience. Atiku
Yeah.
there, so I'm sure he's someone who would have more questions, but I'm sure there were others.
All
Uh,
right.
Thank you, Atiku. Have a good, well, I guess still morning in Nigeria,
Yeah, yeah,
and
it is.
wishing you a good end of the week ahead.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
Thank you.